All right, let's get into a story about what happens when corporate arrogance goes head to head with institutional knowledge. Spoiler alert, it does not go well. This is about a company that looked at a 20-year veteran and saw nothing but a line item on a spreadsheet, only to find out she wasn't just part of the structure, she was the entire foundation.
So picture this, you get back from lunch, and this is what you find on your office door. 20 years of service, and they couldn't even be bothered to print a proper sign. They just taped a piece of paper over your name. And in a final twist of sheer incompetence, they actually misspelled the new guy's name. I mean, come on. This isn't just an insult, it's a symptom of a much, much bigger problem.
For 2 decades, our protagonist here was the quiet spine of the company. She wasn't flashy, she didn't make a lot of noise, she just made sure the business could legally operate. But then, new leadership waltzes in, takes one look at her quiet competence, and thinks, there's a role that's ripe for automation. And here he is, the architect of the whole disaster, Jordan Pembroke. Oh, you know this guy. Stanford MBA, fresh out of McKinsey. The type who speaks in corporate alphabet soup, AERs, KPIs, you name it. The guy who wears loafers with no socks in the middle of December and calls it visionary. He looked at a complex, legally mandated system, and all he saw was operational drag, a problem he figured he could solve with a slick PowerPoint and a pink slip. And there it is, the sentence that literally sealed the company's fate. Jordan delivered this line with all the unearned confidence of a man who read one blog post on disruption and now considers himself an expert. He thought he was trimming the fat. What he was actually doing was severing the company's aorta. This slide just lays out the catastrophic gap between what he thought was happening and what was actually happening. Jordan's over here talking about sunsetting legacy roles. Meanwhile, the reality is that the entire company's legal right to exist across 3 states is tied to one person's name on a government form, a form he never even bothered to understand. So you gotta understand this key term, named operator. This isn't just a job title you can shuffle around in an org chart, no. It's a legal designation. It's tied to a specific person. The license belongs to her, not the company. You can't delegate it, you can't automate it, you can't just assign it to someone else like you're forwarding an email. It is the legal linchpin of the entire operation. So what do? A system you built and maintained for 20 years gets dismantled by some guy who doesn't even know what it is? You don't scream, you don't argue. No, you walk to a quiet cafe, you order a nice cappuccino, and you calmly, methodically flip the kill switch. And this wasn't some dramatic Hollywood-style hack. It was just a few simple, devastatingly effective clicks. She logged into the state portal, which, of course, she still had access to, and revoked her own license. Then, for good measure, she forwarded that 2-year-old memo where she warned them this exact thing could happen. A quiet, digital demolition. Beautiful. And this all happened less than an hour after she was fired. At 8:42 a.m., while Jordan was probably taking a victory lap, the system was processing its own death sentence. No pop-up asking, "Are you sure?" Just a cold, bureaucratic confirmation. The deed was done. And while this is all happening, Jordan is on a company-wide Zoom call wrapping up a streamlining sync. Someone posted this screenshot to Slack, and the description is just perfect. He looked like a smug weasel in a Brooks Brothers suit. Even his hair seemed to be smirking. The guy has absolutely no idea he's celebrating on the deck of the Titanic, minutes after hitting the iceberg. So back at headquarters, while Jordan is probably at a whiteboard drawing lopsided triangles to explain synergy, the first automated notification from the state quietly hits the legal department's inbox. The very system he ignored is now starting to scream for help. And check out how quickly things fall apart. At 9 a.m., it's just a few emails. By 10:15, a state inspector is physically on site at one of their biggest facilities ordering a full operational freeze. In just over an hour, this went from a digital problem to a very real, very physical, and very expensive one. By mid-morning, the phones at HQ are just completely hijacked. And this is the moment the bubble bursts. A frantic call comes in from the field office manager, and she gets patched directly into Jordan's big leadership meeting. Her voice just cuts through all the corporate nonsense with a dose of raw reality. Can you imagine the silence in that room? Suddenly, that lopsided triangle on the whiteboard doesn't seem quite so important. So while the executives are panicking, the tech team is digging. And they realize pretty quickly, hey, this isn't a glitch. This isn't a server error. You can just picture it in the IT Slack channel. One of them figures it out. This was deliberate. Her license was hard-coded into the system's validation chain. It was designed to be a kill switch. And there it is, the digital tombstone. Error 4303. This isn't a suggestion, it's a hard stop. The system itself is confirming what they refuse to believe. From a legal and operational standpoint, the company has pretty much ceased to exist in 3 states. And finally, the question that should have been asked weeks ago. The chairman of the board, Richard Harrow, flies in and walks into what is basically a corporate funeral, and he asks the whole room, "Who the hell did we just fire?" It's a question directed at the entire culture of arrogance that let this happen. The digital collapse now becomes a physical one. This isn't about error messages anymore. Oh no, this is about police officers and formal suspension orders being delivered right to the front desk of a multi-million-dollar corporation. I mean, just imagine this scene. 2 state inspectors, flanked by uniformed cops, walk into your pristine corporate lobby. They hand over a formal suspension order, stamped in big red letters, enforced immediately, no exceptions. You look out the window, and police cruisers are outside, their flashers painting the walls blue and red. Game over. And this just brings it all full circle, doesn't it? 2 years ago, she sent a detailed memo explaining this exact vulnerability. The chairman's response was a dismissive, "Understood, we'll keep in mind." Now, today, that same chairman is screaming, "And you didn't think to check?" while someone opens that very memo with shaking hands. The chickens have officially come home to roost. And here come the cold, hard numbers. They try to file an emergency injunction to stop the bleeding. It gets rejected in less than 10 minutes. The stock price tanks. They're projected to lose tens of millions of dollars for the day. And our boy Jordan, the visionary, quietly escorted out of the building by security. Not fired, just exiled. And this is the final verdict from the chairman. It is a brutal and perfect summary of Jordan's failure. He wasn't just ignorant, he was arrogant. He didn't ask questions because he assumed he already had all the answers. He saw decades of carefully built infrastructure and thought he could just hit delete. So, of course, they finally call her. The chairman's assistant politely asks for help, maybe some consulting work. And her response is just surgical. No anger, no "I told you so," just a cold, simple instruction. You'll need a new license. I suggest you read the statute this time. Page 12. A masterclass in quiet power. And this is the ultimate takeaway. For 20 years, they saw her as a function, a cog in the machine, just a name on a piece of paper. What they failed to understand, until it was way, way too late, was that she was the paper. She was the legal framework that the entire company was built on. So, it leaves us with this question. Every organization has these people. The quiet, essential ones who aren't flashy, who don't show up in the synergy slide decks, but without whom the whole thing grinds to a halt. So, who are they in your world? Who holds the useless license in your company? And does your leadership have any idea they even exist?